Reminder, all of us at the Daily Wire will be live as DW goes to D.C. for the inauguration of President Donald Trump. Watch live. Join the fight at dailywire.com/subscribe. As the horrific LA fires continue to rage, at least 2,000 buildings now destroyed, at least 5 people dead, some pundits are turning to the political implications. The question sounds cavalier, but people are asking it anyway. Is the destruction of Los Angeles enough to turn California Republican? I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. Barack Obama has been palling around with Hitler, this time at Jimmy Carter's funeral. Sorry, the man that Barack Obama's political party has called Hitler for the last decade, that would be Donald Trump. Now all of a sudden, Obama is laughing, he's smiling, backslapping. I don't know. I guess he's buddies with Hitler now. That's interesting. Before we get into any story, I want to tell you about ExpressVPN. Go to expressvpn.com/Knowles. Going online with that ExpressVPN, it's like taking a private call on speakerphone while in the middle of a crowded room. That's pretty much what you're doing every time you browse without protection. Your internet service provider can see every single website you visit. No, switching into incognito mode does not keep your information private or secure. So you shouldn't be using incognito mode or any other tools to look at anything untoward. But think about the world that we're living in right now with the libs in corporations and in government. You look at dailywire.com. I don't know, is that going to lower your social credit score? Don't give those data to people who hate you. Because in the U.S., your ISPs can legally sell information about all the websites you visit to advertisers. So I strongly recommend ExpressVPN reroutes all your traffic through secure encrypted servers. The ISPs can't track your browsing history. It's so easy for me with ExpressVPN. I just can put it on all my devices. Boom, I click one button. I don't need to think about it anymore. Phone, laptop, tablet. Right now, go to expressvpn.com. expressvpn.com/Knowles. You can get an extra 4 months for free. That is, by my calculations, approximately a third of a year. expressvpn.com/Knowles. 4 months for free. My friend Adam Carolla has just come out with a bold political prediction. Adam, born and raised in Los Angeles, has lived there, I think, his whole life. He says that the LA fires, which were brought about by liberal policies in large part, will make typical LA leftists become conservative.
You guys all voted for Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles. You all voted for Gavin Newsom. And now you get what you get. Oh, now that your house is on fire, well, now you're thinking about something else. Now you want to know what's going on. What's going on around here? You didn't give a shit about what was going on when other people's houses were on fire, but now you care. So here's what's going to happen. All these people who were deep blue Democrats are now going to have to pull a permit to rebuild. And they're going to get the 28-year-old from the Coastal Commission telling them to go off. And then they're going to vote for Trump or whoever's Trumpian next. You see, they're going to get turned. They're going to get turned hard.
Love Adam. I hope he's right. Would that it were so simple. I'm a little skeptical. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's right. Liberal policies led to all of this awful destruction. He's right. When these people go to rebuild, the bureaucracy is going to be awful about it. He's right. The bureaucracy is awful largely because of Democrats. I just don't think that even the city burning to the ground is going to turn Los Angeles Republican. I don't think it's going to turn California Republican because it presumes too much. The Democrats are incompetent at governing, but they're not incompetent at electoral politics, usually, most of the time. And so I think what's really going to happen is the Angelenos, the really wealthy leftist zillionaire Angelenos who want to rebuild their homes, they are going to blame climate change. They're going to find a way to blame Trump for the fires. They will. They're going to find a way to blame Arnold Schwarzenegger. I don't know, whoever the last Republican is who ever got elected to anything in California. They're going to find a way to blame that person. And then They are going to demand that they rebuild faster. But I think what's going to happen is these very wealthy Angelenos, maybe not even the millionaire class, more like the 100 millionaire or billionaire class, they're going to put pressure on Gavin Newsom. They're going to put pressure on whoever the mayor is. They're going to put pressure on whoever the members of Congress are to get federal funds. They're going to use their political capital to tell their employees, the politicians that they put into office, to figure it out and give them their homes quickly. And the politicians are probably going to acquiesce because the politicians know where their bread is buttered. So the Democrat Party will be seen to moderate, at least on the issue of bureaucracy and rebuilding. The Democrat Party is going to adapt to the demands of the market of votes. They're going to adapt to their constituents, or at least to their donors. But I don't think that even burning the city to the ground is enough to turn leftists in Los Angeles Republican. I just don't think they'll do it. I wish it were that simple, but the Democrats are a little too clever. The leftists in Los Angeles are not nearly clever enough. It's a one-party town, and politics is dynamic. Now, some of these politicians are going to have to go. There's no question. Gavin Newsom's presidential career is all but over. That guy thought he was going to be the nominee in 2028. That desire is on life support. It's probably dead. Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles, she is done. She should resign. This is absolutely pathetic. It's getting worse by the day because some sleuths on the internet have uncovered an old tweet from Karen Bass. This is February 19th, 2021. Ted Cruz fleeing Texas in the middle of a deadly crisis is part of a larger pattern of the GOP abandoning folks in crisis. We need to build a movement to kick them all out. Karen Bass has been in Africa while her city burns to the ground. She's been pretty MIA. In fact, Gavin Newsom, while he was trying to save his own skin, decided to point that fact out in a press conference on the fires.
All of the folks behind me and the outstanding leadership of all the elected officials as well. And forgive me, one point I'd be remiss. Thank you to Mayor Bass, who was on the phone immediately this morning, making sure even in absentia that she's here organizing everything she can to make sure we're successful as well.
Absolutely brutal. Newsom there makes that point at the end. He probably should have just left her out of it. I can't tell. Is Newsom here trying to include her to give her a little political favor? Or is he tossing her under the bus, saying, look, I'm here. Hey, don't blame me. I'm here. Put the heat on Karen Bass. I know you're going to blame some politician for this. Don't blame me. Karen Bass didn't even show up. She's in Africa right now. But don't worry, though. She picked up the phone right away. Gavin Newsom's a little slick. He's a little American Psycho, isn't he? A little Patrick Bateman to him. And so while pretending to be lauding Karen Bass, he does so in such a brutal way. He does so in such an underhanded way where he really undermines her whole credibility. Oh, no, and hold on. I bet some of you are wondering where the mayor of LA is. Well, don't you worry. She called me. I mean, she's on the other side of the world. She obviously doesn't care about any of you, but she picked up the phone. So, remember that. It's not really working, though, because Karen Bass is catching a ton of flack, but Gavin Newsom's catching an insane amount of flack as well. And Karen Bass, not being there, still did better than Joe Biden, who showed up and decided to talk about his great-grandkids.
Astounding what's happening. Well, I want piece of good news. My son lives out here in his way. They got a notification yesterday that their home was probably burning around. Today, it appears that maybe still standing, I'm not sure. But the good news is, I'm a great-grandfather as of today. My granddaughter. Next time, baby girl, baby boy. So I remember this day for about a long reason. Thank you, Brett.
Little difficult to hear with that audio. It might just be because Joe Biden mumbles around. He's also a little far away from the camera. You could hear that one part, though. He's, one really good thing, though, is I'm a great-grandfather. Joe Biden gets on an airplane, flies into Los Angeles, which is extremely irresponsible. He should not be there. It is bad for first responders that Joe Biden is there. You got a city that's already shut down. They're doing everything they can to contain these fires, and that's not going very well. And so what do you need? You need the sitting president to come in, compromise the airspace, compromise the roadways. How does that help? So that he can take a photo op? Make Gavin Newsom look a little bit better? I don't think he even really makes him look better because Joe Biden comes out there and he just talks about his great-grandkid. Congratulations, Joe. It's great that you have a great-grandkid. Great-grandfathers should not be president. People who can claim to be great-grandfathers, I think by definition they've aged out of being president. That's all Joe wants to talk about, though. I'm sure it's great. I'm sure he wants to talk about how great it is to be a great-grandfather and how much he loves mint chocolate chip ice cream. And I'm sure he wants to give a hard candy to the kids when they come by the house. That's the sort of thing that guys in their 80s should do. They should not be the president of the United States. If it's possible to make Gavin Newsom and the Los Angeles political class look worse, he managed to do it. Now, speaking of homes, I want to talk to you about Home Title Lock. Go to HomeTitleLock.com, promo code Knowles. If you are a homeowner like me, when's the last time you checked on the title of your home? That is the legal document that shows that you own it. If the answer is never, you need to know about a fast-growing crime that the FBI calls house stealing. I was previously shown how easy this scam is to pull off. It is shocking. A one-page document called a quitclaim deed. This one-page document, criminals are forging that document, then filling them out with your information, signing it with a fake signature, stamping it with a notary seal that you can get online for $20, then filing them with the county officials. That's it. That's all it takes for your home to be transferred out of your name without your knowledge. And then you think, okay, well, if the guy comes to get my home, I'll just blast him to high heaven. No, that's not how it works. The scammers don't want your house. They want the equity in your house. The first step is to check on your home's title to make sure you're not already a victim, because they could steal the value of your house. You wouldn't even know it necessarily. Could be weeks, could be months. You can get a free title history report and a 30-day free trial of triple lock protection today by going to HomeTitleLock.com using promo code Knowles, KNWLES, or clicking on the link in the description. That is HomeTitleLock.com, promo code Knowles. Do not wait until it's too late. Speaking of presidents, Barack Obama is hanging out with Hitler. Jimmy Carter died. And now the former presidents are showing up to pay their respects. And who does Barack Obama sit right next to? By golly, it's Donald Trump. You can see Al Gore right behind them, just so miserable. He's like, I was supposed to be president. And then why is that jerk? Why is Obama and Clinton and Trump, why are they both allowed up there? Anyway, forget about Al Gore. You see Trump, he's relaxed. You see Obama, just kind of chatting, just hanging out. Trump's smiling. He laughs a little bit. Obama's smiling. They're cracking jokes. Then even a little later on, it wasn't just pleasantries when Obama sat down. You got Obama there. Obama's laughing. Oh, that Trump, he's a real cut-up. That Hitler, boy, Hitler, man, he's Adolf with a one-liner. Nobody can beat him. His Rickles routine is top-notch. They're really getting into it. I don't know. I wonder if those guys text. But hold on, I thought that Donald Trump posed an existential threat to democracy. I thought that he's a neo-Nazi who launched who at Charlottesville called Nazis very fine people. And that is why Joe Biden launched his presidential campaign on that lie. I thought that was the case. I thought that January 6th was the worst insurrection, a near coup d'etat that almost shredded the Constitution and installed a Hitlerian dictatorship in America. Barack Obama's hanging with that guy? That's crazy, huh? You know why he's doing it? It's not because these guys like each other. I don't think they like each other really at all. It's because Donald Trump is normal. He's normal. I think that might be the biggest defeat from a messaging standpoint that the Democrats have had to deal with for 10 years. Trump is normal. If you get elected to 2 terms, at least 2 terms, as president, you're normal. If you win the popular vote as a Republican for the first time in 20 years, you're normal. If you win huge swaths of all sorts of different voter demographics, you're normal. This is what you heard from the left for years, and from the squish right. You heard, we cannot normalize Donald Trump. He's normal. Because he's normal, the former Democrat president's going to talk to him. Probably the former Democrat president is friendlier with him than the former Republican president. Because Trump's been a little harsh on the Bush family. The Bush family's been a little harsh on Trump. But they're all in the same club now. He's no longer an outlier. Jimmy Carter, when he would take pictures in the former president's club, Jimmy Carter often liked to stand separate, as though his presidency were fundamentally different from the corrupt presidencies that followed. Reagan and the Bushes and Clinton. He was different. He's a better man. But they're all together now. Trump's one of the guys. In fact, he won a more impressive victory, a much more impressive comeback than any of those other presidents there. He's the most normal one of all. Now, some Democrats are less inclined to reach across the aisle right now. Notably, Elizabeth Warren. Senator Hiawatha is screeching at Pete Hegseth, President Trump's Defense Secretary nominee, over the importance of diversity in the military. Here's what Elizabeth Warren writes. DoD officials have been clear that, quote, diversity, equity, and inclusion in the military are necessities for the United States, and that the military must be able to attract, train, and retain them for the services, to retain competitive edges. You, Pete Hegseth, have claimed that the dumbest phrase on planet Earth in the military is diversity is our strength. As noted above, you also called for firing the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and any general that was involved, any general, admiral, whatever that was involved in any of the DEI woke SHIT. Additionally, you complained in the War on Warriors that a woke military emphasizes the made-up military values of diversity and inclusion and fails to recruit masculine men who make up our warrior class. She goes on, but I don't have enough. I don't have enough patience to get through it. This is her thesis. Diversity is an absolute necessity for our military. Diversity is the military's strength. But I have one question. Why does the military wear uniforms? If diversity is the military's strength, why do they wear uniforms? Shouldn't they wear diversiforms? Shouldn't they wear individualistic, eclectic, expressive outfits? Shouldn't they wear, I don't know, leather and feather boas? And why is it that they wear uniforms? Well, this question is answered on a Defense Department website. You can type it right in. Why does the military wear uniforms? DoD says, the military wears uniforms to create consistency and a sense of camaraderie. The military wears uniforms because uniformity is our strength in the military. Uniformity, cohesion, consistency, being all together, having a common purpose, understanding each other, being the same. What do they say about the Marines? When you go in for training in the Marines, they tear you down so they can build you back up, and you're all going to be the same, and you're going to be a unified fighting force. That's why the military wears uniforms, also because of international law, and that's why diversity is manifestly not our strength. I love Elizabeth Warren here. You can hear the desperation as she just reaches for that tomahawk. She writes, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, all the generals, the admirals who are involved in this, our military, our DoD officials have been clear that diversity is our strength. Yeah, but Pete's about to be their boss. No, but the authorities, claims Elizabeth Warren, all of the authorities at the Pentagon claim that diversity is the military strength. Well, no, actually, the top authority at the Pentagon, the man who's about to become the top authority at the Pentagon, he says you're wrong. So if you're going to appeal to authority at the Pentagon, well, you're going to be appealing to Pete Hegseth. And Pete Hegseth is going to say you're wrong, and Pete Hegseth is right. This is what they're really screeching over. They're really gnashing their teeth over, is we are seeing a true changing of the guard. It's not just that the Republicans won the presidency, but they lost the House and the Senate. It's not just that the Republicans won the presidency and the House and the Senate, but they don't have the Supreme Court. The Republicans now have unified government, and they can wield the power of the state to undo the terrible policies of the last 4 years. Many policies that go back much further than the last 4 years. That's what they're really screeching about. No, but all the experts. Yeah, well, now we're the experts. No, but all the authorities. Yeah, now we're the authorities. But no, the establishment. Hey, you know what, lady? We're about to be the establishment. Hey, you like that? And you're about to be fringe. You are on the outside. You are banished from the Longhouse and from the TP. Speaking of members of Congress, Unusual Whales has a great little study out on our Congress. I sometimes think that members of Congress are not always the most intelligent people in the world. There's some real bright spots, but I would say the median IQ in Congress is probably lower than other institutions in our country. However, members of Congress have a real genius for one thing. It's not passing good laws. It's not really getting anything good to advance the common good, but they do have an amazing genius for investing. These guys know how to pick a stock, man. This study shows, if you just look at Congressional Democrats stock portfolios jumped 31% in 2024. 31%. I don't know anything about investing. I just have a guy who does it for me. But I ain't getting 31%. I'm not getting a fraction of that. 31%. That far beats the S&P 500. Then let's be bipartisan about it, because there are plenty of Republicans who do this too. If you look at the 100 or so members of Congress who actively trade, only half of them beat the S&P 500. Most members of Congress tracked with less active trading than previous years, and Nancy Pelosi, top of the walk. She's really, really impressive at her trading. But there are a lot of Republicans in there too. It seems a little corrupt, doesn't it? It's not illegal. Members of Congress are allowed to trade stocks, and members of Congress are privy to a lot of information that the general public is not privy to. They're allowed, in a sense, to insider trade. That's a great deal of corruption, isn't it? How do you remedy that corruption? Do you prohibit members of Congress from trading stocks? I guess you could do that. Do you give them a raise? You could just give them a raise. Members of Congress could make a lot more money, most of them, in the private sector than in government. Do you just raise their wages to make them competitive? Possibly. Do you restore virtue? Do you restore civics classes? Do you restore religion? What do you do? That's not, I would be so happy if I could just blame it on the Democrats. But I can't just blame it on the Democrats. It's a systemic problem. I would be so happy if I could just blame it on California or New York or Illinois or some left-wing state. But it's not just a left-wing state problem. This is a federal problem. The rot runs deep. Now, I want to tell you about NetSuite. Go to netsuite.com/Knowles. What does the future hold for business? Ask 9 experts. You will get 10 answers. Bull market, bear market, inflation's up, inflation's down. Can someone please invent a crystal ball? I don't know. While we're waiting for that, over 38,000 businesses have found a way to future-proof their operations with NetSuite by Oracle, the #1 cloud ERP. Imagine having your accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR all seamlessly integrated into one fluid platform. That's NetSuite. With this unified business management suite, you are not just juggling numbers, you are wielding a powerful tool that gives you the visibility and control to make quick, informed decisions. At the Daily Wire, we are proud to partner with NetSuite because they are leading the way in future-proofing operations for businesses around the world. Whether your company is earning millions or even hundreds of millions, NetSuite adapts to your needs, helping you respond to immediate challenges and seizing your biggest opportunities. Speaking of opportunity, download the CFO's Guide to AI and Machine Learning at netsuite.com/Knowles, KNWLES. The guide is free for you at netsuite.com/Knowles, KNWLES, netsuite.com/Knowles. My favorite comment yesterday is from William Elliott, who says, don't forget that Karen Bass donated millions of dollars worth of firefighting equipment to Ukraine and cut millions from the fire departments. I don't think she donated millions of dollars of fire equipment to Ukraine. I haven't seen a number on how much money or on how much fire equipment she donated to Ukraine. I do know that LA, under her leadership, did donate excess and now it doesn't seem to be excess or surplus fire equipment to Ukraine. But I don't know if it was millions. Surely, though, they did cut the fire budgets by millions of dollars. And in any case, if they even sent one hat over to Ukraine, one fire hose over to Ukraine, it's a fire hose that really could be used right now. But this is indicative of a broader problem for the liberals, which is that they prioritize everyone else over Americans, which is why President Trump's slogan, America First, has resonated among most Americans, among the majority of American voters. Now, speaking of investments, there's a little bit of good news. College tuition is decreasing at state schools, and it's increasing at a slower rate at private schools. This is according to the College Board, which is hugely influential in college admissions, shows that the average student attending an in-state public university this year will pay tuition to the order of $11,610. That is down 4% from 10 years ago when you take inflation into account. Now, when you factor in grants and financial aid, the savings are way bigger than 4%. The savings are actually 40% over the course of a decade, from $4,140 to $2,480 annually, according to those data. Now, at private colleges, the cost is still going up, but the rate of increase is diminishing. So the cost has increased 4% over the last decade when you take inflation into account. That's a big change if you look at 2 decades prior when the tuition increase was 68%. What does this tell us? This tells us that the market still functions. This tells us that there is a market correction going on. This tells us that college is overvalued. The year after I went to college, so I guess my sophomore year of college, was the high watermark for college attendance in America. It was 2009. Something like 70% of high school graduates went on to college. All-time high. And it has declined since then, and it's really dropped off in recent years. Meanwhile, the price of college was going up and up and up. The conservative consolation, Russell Kirk tells us this, a lot of conservatives have told us this, is that in the long run, reality reasserts itself. And it can take a while, and it can be hideous, and it can be tragic, and it can cause an entire city to burn to the ground. But reality will reassert itself in the end. You can't escape reality. Reality is undefeated. And here, college is just not worth what people have been paying for it. So I was recently doing a panel with my friend Charlie Kirk, and someone asked us about what she should major in college to have a job in journalism. And Charlie's answer was, don't go to college. And I kind of get it. If you're a Charlie Kirk, don't go to college. You can launch a major political organization at the age of 18. Okay, I don't think there are that many Charlie Kirks in the world. I'm pro-college, but not for the reason that many conservatives are. Some conservatives will say just major in engineering or something. Just major in, I don't know, STEM or something practical. I don't think you should do that. You can go to trade school for that. You can learn that on the job. That's not what university is for. University is not to learn something useful, but to learn something useless, which has real value to it. But the problem these days is even the really fancy schools, even the private schools, even the expensive schools, often don't teach you philosophy, literature, history, almost never theology. They don't really make you a cultured person. They don't really help you make sense of your freedom. So the market's going to correct. And you're seeing that. Now you have data for that. It's no longer just taking it on the words of conservatives who say, this college isn't worth it these days. Now, actually, most Americans think that now because the market is moving. You don't need to just take conservatives' word for it that Trump is normal and he's a good president, people like him. Most Americans think that. Reality is catching up. And the liberal politicians are trying to catch up to reality. Just look at Barack Obama palling around with Hitler. Now, speaking of advances in knowledge, there is something really creepy coming out of Time Shift. Time Shift is a new facility billing itself as the world's first cryopreservation facility based on cutting-edge AI and cryptopreservation. So to simplify that, it's where you go freeze yourself until they cure whatever disease you have. And you've heard about this in the past. There have been eccentrics who have frozen themselves, and it doesn't work. But the idea is, okay, if I'm going to die soon, if I just freeze myself, then maybe I can remain an icicle until the scientists figure out the cure to whatever I have. And then they can thaw me out, give me the cure, and I can live longer. And then I don't know, if I get something else that they don't have the cure for, maybe they put me back in the freezer and they put me next to the hamburgers and the ice cream, and then they thaw me out 100 years later and they cure whatever other disease I got. Okay, we've heard about that before. Now, it's never worked, but this new organization says, no, we figured out how to make it work. We're going to prevent cellular death. Okay, but what makes it even creepier is they say that they have a solution to the big problem that this causes for the people around the person who freezes himself. Namely, if you go and freeze yourself, well, all these people, your daughter, your brother, your community, they lose you. You're in a freezer somewhere, but their lives go on. And the solution, they say, is to use AI to create an avatar of the frozen person's likeness to speak with family and friends in real time while their body is frozen. I've talked to people who say that soon we'll upload our consciousness to a computer, and so even after we die in the physical world, after our bodies decay, there will be a robot that is virtually indistinguishable from us. And then our loved ones who are grieving our death won't really need to grieve because they can just talk to the robot. And it'll seem just like the real person. It's almost like you never have to die. Except, do you see the problem here? Do you see the fundamental problem? C.S. Lewis talks about it in Abolition of Man. With every advance, there's also a retreat. So you say, okay, I want to live forever. I feel that I'm not going to live long enough. So I want to live forever. But in order to live forever, I'm going to stop living right now because I'm going to put myself in a freezer. But it'll be good because in the aggregate, in the long run, I'm going to live forever. But actually, I'm going to cut my life off right now. We think that we can conquer death, even putting aside the cryogenic freezing, by creating an AI avatar, and then we'll be able to live forever in a certain way. The robot will be indistinguishable from the human being. Right? But in order to live forever, I cease to be me. I cease to exist. In other words, there are a lot of dubious assumptions about anthropology and philosophy that are at the heart of these scientific explorations. That's the problem with it. It's not that it's not cool to freeze a person. I guess that's kind of cool that you could do that. It's not that it's not cool that you can make a robot that seems a lot like a person that you know. There's something interesting about that. But you're assuming a lot of things about human nature. You're assuming, for instance, that a human person is just the summation of our synapses firing. You're assuming that the person is just the body, that there's no such thing as an immaterial soul, a spirit. So if that's true, if we really are just a bunch of matter, then if you can replicate the matter, you've replicated the person. The problem is that your premise is false. At least I think your premise is false. I don't think that the only thing that matters is matter. I think there's more to the world. These days, it's very popular to say that all that exists is stuff, but I think that's ridiculous. I think dreams and love and mathematics and also all sorts of things exist that are not material. I think, for instance, that the soul is the form of the body, the substantial form of the body. I think this is increasingly backed up by scientific discoveries, particularly in the quantum field. But putting that aside, I'm no expert on it. It just seems to me that actually all the old wisdom is being vindicated. I think that Aristotle's right and these futurist weirdo atheists are wrong. But at the very least, we have to acknowledge that is what's being smuggled in here. And we're not the first to predict it. C.S. Lewis predicted this in The Abolition of Man. Many people saw that the more we advance, the more we seem to retreat. I got in trouble because I made this point on the show that the Dark Ages were actually relatively weren't so dark. And actually, when you compare them, look, there are plenty of advantages to modernity. Okay, I like modern dentistry a lot more than medieval dentistry, probably. But there are many ways in which the modern era is much more barbaric, much more violent, much less civilized, much less conducive to flourishing than the Middle Ages. Okay, speaking of the abolition of man, here's just a quick story, really sad. A young female firefighter has sustained serious head injuries while fighting the fire in LA. A 25-year-old woman sustained a major head injury. She's being treated right now, so we can pray for her. I hope she does well. But this gets to the kind of dubious assumptions we're making about human nature. In this case, the one that men and women are exactly the same. It's wrong for women to be firemen. It's wrong. I'm not saying she doesn't have good intentions. I'm not saying she's not demonstrating heroism and a kind of a virtue, but it's just wrong. I don't want to read that story. I don't want to read that a woman gets her head knocked in fighting a fire. I don't want to read that a woman catches a bullet from a jihadi fighting in Iraq. I don't want to read that. I think it's a barbaric society that permits our women, much less now encourages our women to do this. I think men and women are different. I think actually firemen need to be big and strong and burly. I think they need to be big, strong, burly guys who can carry big, heavy hoses and equipment and carry people out on their shoulders. And I think they need to be men who are more inclined toward physical violence. Men who, when physical violence occurs to them, it's not quite so ghastly and horrifying as when it happens to a woman. I think men and women are different. And I think the prioritizing of DEI in first responders in Los Angeles and elsewhere in the country is just one more aspect of that, of the political rot that's been allowed to set in. Nothing against the individual women who want to do these things. It's very noble in a way that they want to help, but it's disordered the way that our society is now expecting them to contribute. It's disordered, it's contrary to nature, and we shouldn't have to tolerate it. What is a woman? The question we've just been discussing sparked a cultural conversation. Now, Identity Crisis, a powerful new film from the Daily Wire and Turning Point USA, goes even deeper, exposing the heartbreaking consequences of radical gender ideology while highlighting stories of resilience and courage in the pursuit of truth. Starting now, and for the next 72 hours, Identity Crisis is streaming for free on X. We chose to make it free for 72 hours because this is a story everyone needs to see. The raw, unflinching truth about how this dangerous ideology is affecting children and families. Creating bold, premium content like this is not easy, it's costly, it's bold, it's essential. That is why the Daily Wire depends on your support to keep reshaping the cultural landscape. Follow Real Daily Wire on X, watch Identity Crisis, spread it, share it, tell everyone about it. Finally, we've reached my favorite time of the week when I get to hear from you in the mailbag. Our mailbag is sponsored by Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Knowles, Canada BLES, to save an additional 50% off your first month. Take it away.
Hello, Michael. My name is Drew. I'm 13 years old. I've been listening to the show daily for 3 years. I'm calling from Tampon Tim State of Minnesota, and my question for you is, how come conservatives have fought for women's sports and defended them relentlessly from giant men pretending to be women? Yet, we also make fun of women's sports constantly. I mean, even my mom says we can't have women's basketball on, even if it's to make fun of it. We think it's dumb, but also speak of it as if it's an incredibly important thing. We say that nobody watches them, which they don't, but we also say how this is an invasion of an institution, but it's an institution that nobody cares about to begin with. Well, I do agree with both of these points. I could not defend them simultaneously in an argument. Love the show. Thank you for answering my question.
Really great question and really well stated. Both of those things are true. We fight the imposition of men in women's sports, and we don't really care about women's sports. That's true. Because what we care about is justice, and it is unjust for men to enter into women's private spaces and associations and take their trophies and scholarships away from them. It's unjust, it's disordered, it is grounded on falsehoods, it is harmful, often physically harmful to the women involved. It's harmful to the men who think that they're women as well, because it leads them and affirms them in delusion. That's why. It's just a matter of justice. I make fun of Canada a lot, but if the Chinese dropped a nuclear bomb on Toronto because they don't like Tim Hortons, I would come to Canada's defense. Not because I think Canada has its act together, not because I think Canada is the most important nation in the history of the world, but because it would be rather unjust for China to do such a thing. How that analogy came up, I'm not quite sure. But that's why. It's about justice. You don't need to defend women's sports because you like the sports. You should defend women's sports because you like the women. You want women to receive their due, to be treated in a just way. Next question.
Hi, Michael. Thanks for the show. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on this. What would you do if you were in my situation? Or better, what should my husband do if this situation ever comes up again? Today, we went out to eat with our 9-month-old baby, having a great time, family-friendly experience, when 2 very inappropriately dressed people came in to eat. They were wearing tight leather, bondage clothes, freaky face tattoos, piercings, collars, the whole kit and caboodle. Now, we finished our meal quickly and left, but this is the kind of thing we don't want our son to be exposed to. Thankfully, at this point in his life, he's too young to remember it, but in the future, what would you have done? Thank you.
What would I have done in that situation? I would have requested of the waiter, or better, the manager, that the restaurant kick those people out. Because it is inappropriate to wear leather sex gear into a restaurant. You wouldn't be asking the restaurant to kick these people out because of their true identity or even because of their deviant desires or private behaviors. You would be asking to kick them out because they are not comporting themselves in accord with the standards of the restaurant or public decency. So that's what I'd say. I'd call them over and say, hey, you need to ask those people to leave, please. And if they gave me pushback, I would explain it as I just did. And in fact, I was present when such a thing happened in New York while protecting the establishment in question. I was with a coworker of mine in a coffee shop in New York in a very Italian neighborhood. And I actually didn't see this episode happen. I was in the bathroom when this happened, and when I came out, my coworker was laughing, and he said, you're not going to believe what just happened. In this coffee shop, in an Italian part of New York, they had, it's a pretty traditional area, but they had a gay flag right behind the counter. And I hit the bathroom. I was just getting a cup of coffee. I go into the bathroom. While I'm in there, some big Goomba just walks up to the counter and goes, "What's with the flag?" And the guy behind the counter says, "Huh? What's with the flag?" The guy behind the counter says, "What? Oh, yeah, it's inclusion. It's nice. We're welcoming everybody." And the Goomba says, "Get rid of the flag. There are children in here. Nobody needs to see that. Get rid of that rainbow flag. I don't want to see that." And so the guy behind the counter, I guess, was pushing back a little bit. Eventually, the guy behind the counter says, "Hey, this is my shop. You can't tell me what to do with my flag." And the Goomba says, "Yeah, it's your shop, but it's my neighborhood. Get rid of that flag." And then I don't know what happened. We left the coffee shop later. I just hit the head, had my coffee, I left. I like that. I like that kind of thing. Yeah, sure. It's your shop. It's my neighborhood. It's my country. It's my society. And it's your society, and it's his society, and it's his society. And we are entitled to live according to standards. So that's what I would say. You don't need to be mean about it. You don't need to be nasty, but you can be firm and reasonable. Yeah, sorry, no sex gear in the Chuck E. Cheese. Take that elsewhere. Take that to some other restaurant. Next question.
Hey, Michael. Love the show. Just had a quick question about taking the Lord's name in vain. A lot of people saying things like, well, Jesus Christ, or oh my God, are taking his name in vain, but I don't necessarily believe that, because when I was 16, I would tell everybody I was God, and then he almost killed me, and it took repenting midair. I had a collapsed lung from that. Then at 18, I was acting like a jerk with God, and he set me on fire on Easter Sunday. And then when I was 20, I was going around slightly mocking God, and I almost lost my hand. Ever since then, I have been very careful with my speech. I do say things like, oh my God, G-A-H. Sometimes I do say, well, Jesus Christ, but it's always in a respectful way because I've almost died. Just want to know what you thought about that.
I'm a little bewildered, I suppose, by your account. Sorry to hear of your troubles, but glad you've come out in the end. I suppose I would recommend that you not test the Lord your God. So I'm not denying necessarily that these misfortunes that have befallen you have some relation to the way you've behaved or spoken. I don't know that there's a connection, but I wouldn't take the absence of some calamity when you take the name of the Lord in vain as evidence that you are not, therefore, taking the name of the Lord in vain. You are. When you use God's name in a trivial way or in a flippant way or certainly in a profane way, that just is, by definition, taking the Lord's name in vain. You're using his name in a vain way. So God tells you not to do that. And at a deeper point about religion is not purely a subjective experience. Religion is an objective thing. Religion is a habit of virtue that inclines the will to give to God what he deserves. It's something that we can know something about. Religion is not, as many modern people believe, just a preference. You like chocolate, I like vanilla. It's not just an opinion that's not grounded in truth. It's a legitimate subject of inquiry that is grounded in reason and reality. We can know something about it with certainty. So, all of that to say, don't take the name of the Lord in vain, and don't wait to have another piano fall on your head to follow that advice. Next question.
Hello, Michael. I would like to say thank you for your previous advice back in November. I asked you if I should wait until my girlfriend and I were more financially stable to propose to her, or go ahead and propose now and just be engaged for a little while. Well, I took your advice. I was able to buy a ring and proposed, and happily, she said yes. My question for you now is, do you have any advice on things we should know or do before getting married? Thank you, and God bless.
That's great. I'm really glad to hear that things have worked out for you. Yes, I do have advice. You both should know what you are signing up for. You need to agree on what it is you are doing. That's the most important thing to begin. Then you actually have to cultivate the habits that allow you to do that thing. But these days, we don't know what marriage is. The Supreme Court doesn't know what marriage is. People are real confused about marriage. Even more traditional people or religious people, sometimes they're a little confused. You need to know what this is. Are you equal partners who, decide that you're going to help each other out, and you're going to go, I'm going to make the special vanilla cake for you on Sunday, and you're going to always warm the towel for me? And is it that kind of thing? Are you engaged in a relationship for mutual amusement? Or are you a man who finds a wife and you come together and become one flesh, and you're doing something that has a head to it, the husband, and a wife, and you come together for the begetting and education of children, and as a secondary matter for the mutual support of the spouses? Just off the top of my head. What are you doing? Figure that out. The most successful marriages I've ever seen involve two people who agree on what they're doing, where there's really little ambiguity. Because when you get the basic stuff settled, then you can have real brilliance and real creativity. It's like a poem. When you have meter to a poem, when you perhaps have a rhyme scheme to a poem, when you know the form of the poem, it's within those limits. It's from those limits that the real brilliance and creativity can exist. When it's just a kind of free verse, slam poetry nonsense, the whole thing's incoherent, and it will probably have you running for the doors. It's Fake Headline Friday, and I have more written mailbag to get to. The rest of the show continues now. You do not want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.